Betsy and Thomas here for the American Intelligence Media. I have a few housekeeping notes before we start decoding the Trump tweets, okay? First thing is we're making some adjustments at the American Intelligence Media and how we deliver our material to you. If you're interested, you'll figure it out yourself. We have a clear path, but you really are going to have to look for it at this point. And the reason I bring that up is because the censorship is getting so bad now. I know you're doing some research on that, on Thomas. We have to be strategic in how we make sure that our audience gets the information. And so that's why these changes. Do you want to say anything about that, what you have found? I mean, these headlines that I'm seeing are just awful about what's going on in Europe and France with the censorship. And now I read that the Department of Homeland Security is going to put they've got contracts out so that they can figure out who the influencers are out in the internet world. You know, like there's 290,000 places they're going to start with. And as I look at that, I'm going, well, duh, they'll probably give the contract to Circo or CACI. Is that it? CACI.
Well, in Europe, it's going to the Atlantic Council, the chief organization for anti-Russian fake propaganda. And it's joining with Dmitry Alperovich and CrowdStrike, the group that was hired by Obama for 5 years as their...
And we just talked about that in a recent video. That's how fast this stuff is moving now.
Well, we have now discovered, as we have leaned upon the whole idea of the way that Cambridge Analytica led us back to Strategic Communications Laboratories, which then led us to their demise and their getting caught with the fraud in the Brexit election and the vote. And now George Soros, as we just pointed out, is working with a group called Full Fact, and they are actually hiding the fact that it's George Soros and, how do you say this guy's name, Pereir Omidyar, the guy who owns eBay. They are hiding the fact that they are supporting this, and they are going to be the fact checkers for everything in Europe now, and Soros is going to push to have a re-election on Brexit because he says that Strategic Communications Laboratories, SCL in many of its forms, which is basically the Queen's corporate intelligence privy council for all of her golden shares, communications, intelligence, weapons, resources, everything. But anyway, they work with her, and they're in a fight with George Soros because they don't want to be part of the EU, because the Queen and her group has already taken full advantage of everything they can take out of Europe. And now they want to come out and they want to join NAFTA. They want to join America. Well, that's not going to happen because NAFTA's going to no longer exist in a very short while. But that's where they were headed. And so George Soros doesn't want that. He wants to destroy all of Europe, nations, and have one, as he was able to accomplish, European Union.
But isn't the point that they need influence to do this, and now they're trying to get those channels cut off?
Well, that's why Facebook just got hit with a $9.9 billion fine, Facebook, Google, and a few others, as well as $8 billion in lawsuits and $2 billion in sanctions in Australia. And now our own government, as they look back upon what Mark Zuckerberg told them, is now calling him a liar and says that they may have to fine him for his lies because it's come out everywhere that he just lies. He doesn't even know what he's talking about. They're not really lies. You're talking to an idiot who's got a blank mind. They blanked his mind, I think, and he just says what he's told to. He's like okay, well, this is all about Facebook.
Okay.
Because Dmitry Alperovich, CrowdStrike, and the Atlantic Council have joined together with Soros and the owner of eBay to create a system that is now going to go in and analyze things before they are even given out. Here in America, this is how it's going to work. When you're looking at the news and you're not reading those headlines that are scrolling below the picture, well, those headlines are now going to be analyzed. And anyone who isn't saying the same thing, they're going to find out who those people are, just as you pointed out, and they're going to go back. They have an algorithm to go back and find out who the source of it is, so they can stop anything except the mainstream media, echo chamber, parrot of Associated Press, Reuters, Thomson, which is, of course, run by bankers and brokers. And it always has been. It's run by not the people they're reporting to. We are their propaganda targets. And so this is a disinformation age, an age of post-truth. And what I'm saying is, in Europe, the following groups are doing the work to stop all free speech. And if we are not careful, it's going to, and it is happening here in America.
Happening.
These tweets, as you say, Betsy,
No.
are the antidote. In Europe, what we see is in Oxford and in Cambridge, and through Cambridge we have, the Cambridge Analytica, we have the Cambridge Intelligence Service, we have the Cambridge Security Intelligence, we have all these Cambridge groups, and that's where Stefan Halper conducted the attack on the U.S. election, because that's what SCL, Strategic Communications Laboratory, that's what they do. They mind bend, they're psyops. They say they're the first military psyops in cyber warfare with commercialism that can be applied to elections. And they've been doing this in 60 countries, 100 elections, 44 elections here in America since 2012. And so when this was all discovered, what we have now discovered is that George Soros is going to get a new Brexit vote because he's going to say that vote was meddled with, just as they're saying the vote here in America with Trump was meddled with. And always Soros says it's the Russians. But they hired Dmitry Alperovitch, who is a Russian, as their number one guy to make sure that only the facts that are approved by George Soros are going to be allowed during that next election.
Okay. Here's the point I wanted to make just really succinctly, and then we can move into the Trump tweets, is the information war is going full blast. You need to decide who you're going to follow and stick with them, because even your best creators, and I'm not talking about us, but other creators, their channels are just being totally wiped out. And if you aren't paying attention to your subscribe buttons and paying attention, you're going to miss out what they're saying. So you really need to get more aggressive yourself. Now, for those that are writing in and saying they're just so very confused, they don't know what's propaganda, what's fake news, what's real, and what's not. We're saying simply follow Trump's tweets and follow the people that are decoding his tweets. We need to stay focused. They want us scattered all over the place. They want us not knowing what to believe. We elected Donald Trump to lead us, so just follow the Trump tweets.
Let me go on a bit for our European friends who are now under siege. If you hear anything from the following people, it is a lie. The Atlantic Council, East Stratcom, Computational Propaganda Research Project out of Oxford, Full Fact, which is the Soros-driven Ministry of Truth in Europe for the next election, Noodle Remover, European Media Monitor, Prop or Not. These are all lies. They say that they are fact checkers. They are not. I just went to every one of them. There is not a word that they say that is not biased. Not one word.
That reminds me of someone who asked me today about PolitiFact. That's here in the United States. I was answering them by saying that, no, this is not a reliable source, and nor is that Snopes. But most people know that, but we might as well add them to the list.
Now, what I think is interesting is that the number one group in Europe doing this is this group. I want you to look at this, Betsy, and I want you to be open to something. It's prop or not. What's the word right in the middle?
Or porn.
Porno.
Oh, porno. But you know what?
They draw you to it because the word porno is in the name.
Well, prop or not has been around for a while. Okay, I just want to make sure because people in the United States have also seen it. So what we're saying, giving you an all points bulletin, because we're going to keep everybody in the world abreast on what we're finding. Also need to be very careful over there in Europe right now. Where is it in England that Soros has his teams going out door to door?
All throughout Europe.
All throughout Europe to pressure you into whatever is in his agenda, right? For England, it would be Brexit. I don't know what it would be on Europe.
He's hiding the fact that he has tens of thousands of people on the street going door to door, and they're scaring people because they're trying to force them to reverse their vote so that they stay in the European Union so that George Soros wins. Now, I referred to looking at the news subtitles that are running all the time that you don't even notice. Mm-hmm. We don't even read those, right? But that is what is going to determine all truth, and that's called Google's new plan called Digital News Initiative, which has been purchased by the government, and it will be in effect in the next election. So if you are watching any mainstream media, you are being controlled.
You've got to turn the television off, and that even includes your beloved Fox News, which you think is good, but it is not. You're being programmed over these television sets.
And the Truth Ministry here with the Global Engagement Center during the election was the one who was actually doing all the stuff that Mueller is saying the Russians did, or that Clapper's investigation, the joint investigation on Russian interference in the election, which was all nonsense. But it's the same thing. So you just pointed out PolitiFact. Before I go to these, I always research them thoroughly. And I even look at the left-wing insanity to see if there's any truth there. And then I check out both the left and the right. There's very little right-wing of anything to see, okay? Or even, let us say, Republican view. The Democrat-Republican view. So you go to the left, all these groups are all Democratic, okay? And they're all supported in Europe by George Soros non-government organizations, which say that they're for democracy and free speech. They're the opposite. And they're funded by Open Society and the Tides Foundation. Here in America, it's directly connected into our system. So he's doing this through any single fact check that you go to, of the about 20 that I looked at this morning concerning Trump tweets and his supposed statement, there's 17 angry people on Mueller's team. And not one of them says that's true. Well, it is in fact true. And then they say that he makes all these mistakes in what he says there. And if you look into it, no. There's one slight mistake, but then if you want to just look at it in the bigger picture, yes, still he was working. Mueller was working. He said 8 years working for Obama. It wasn't 8 years. It was 6.5. They all lie and say it's 4.5. I mean, they can't even get their math together. Not one of these groups, and these fact checkers all had the same junk information. It was just like turning from one channel to the next on mainstream media, the exact words at the exact same time.
Look. Folks, if you want fact checkers, come here first. For those of you who've been following us now for a year, you know what our track record is, and we're going to stay here through the end of this war. Now,
shout out,
yeah, I want to give a shout out to Ross Maiden on BitChute. His channel is called The Truth Think Tank, and the reason is that Ross took us up on our challenge. We say that we are the best Trump tweet decoders on the face of the earth, and we challenge anyone out there to do it better than we do. And if you do put up a video, send it to us. For those who know us, you know how to get a hold of us. Send it to us, and if it's even halfway decent, we'll post it and let people know that you're up for the challenge. Okay, let's get going on these Trump tweets.
Because we have researchers who bring things to our understanding every day that shock us. So thank you for those who wish to interpret the Trump tweets. Instead of going to QAnon's back up. Boom, 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 boom. Remember when they put that post up? That's what got Jerome Corsi, the FBI, at his door. They post it. Now turn the QAnon post upside down, and what does it look like?
Oh, God.
A handgun. That's how stupid they've gotten. And 10 days, if they went down, and they said they needed to be down for 10 days, and they post boom, 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 boom,
okay.
Picture of a handgun.
Why were you talking about
Holy
nonsense?
heavens.
Let's get into what's important, and that's the Trump tweets.
Sorry, Mr. Trump, I'm sorry they ever associated themselves with you.
Okay. We've had many championship teams recently at the White House, including the Chicago Cubs, Houston Astros, Pittsburgh Penguins, New England Patriots, Alabama and Clemson national champions, and many others. National anthem and more great music today at 3 p.m.
More winning for Trump. And all it means to me is that people are waking up to what the meaning of the flag is. The flag is the blood of those in the field who died for your freedom so that you could reach for your star. And if you don't know that as a soldier, and you've never been a soldier, then you should just be humble enough to listen to those who have put their life on the line, who even after being in the military can salute during the time of the flag. The rest of us put our hand over our heart because why? We're thanking those who died. And that would be every race, color, and creed of person who was ever in America. The United States flag, Betsy Ross, which you sewed with your own hands.
That was in another lifetime.
Was, it's sacred. It is sacred to those of us who have seen our fellows die on our left and our right. And those who don't understand that simply are not Americans, and they should have their citizenship questioned, and they should get they should be trained in the U.S. Constitution and U.S. history.
I want to take it a little deeper. I want to say that it really is a litmus test. And for any sports team, any business, anything out there, if you cannot support the United States of America clearly, without any hesitation, then we will know you as being on the globalist team, right? Because we've got the patriots versus the globalists.
Absolutely.
All right, now on to the next tweet. The Russian witch hunt hoax continues, all because Jeff Sessions didn't tell me he was going to recuse himself. I would have quickly picked someone else. So much time and money wasted, so many lives ruined, and Sessions knew better than most that there was no collusion.
No collusion with himself, no collusion with Trump and Russia, Sessions in Russia, or anything to do with Russia. There was no collusion. Even Michael Flynn was a setup. We now know that. Sally Yates lied. Hopefully she'll go to jail for that. And that just came out recently in new documents that we're looking at. So what is he really saying here is, Jeff Sessions, you need to quit because you're a lying, stinking sack of manure that you took the job and you couldn't remember if you talked about sanctions with a Russian diplomat in Washington when you talked to him on the phone. Okay, that's just stupid. Of course, when we found out that you lied, Mr. Sessions, and there was a telephone that was being taped by your office in your official capacity, you knew you didn't talk about sanctions. And so for you to recuse yourself is stupid. It came out later in an investigation that you had to say, of course, that's right. There were recordings. I've listened to them now. Yes, it's true. I didn't say anything about sanctions. So therefore he can unrecuse himself, fire Rod Rosenstein for signing the FISA warrant, fire everyone who signed those false Carter Page FISA warrants, and indict them. For that alone, period. That's your job. Otherwise, I interpret this message as a Q message, and the Q is the first letter in quit. Q-U-I-T, Jeff Sessions. Quit. Quit.
Well, you see, he is a very tight corner here because if he doesn't do something, he is eventually going to be found to be guilty, and there will be a conviction. And I'll bet you Donald Trump will not be pardoning Mr. Sessions. So,
you're right.
Jeff,
he's guilty too.
Jeff,
he's hiding just like the rest.
That's it. This is game over for you, buddy.
He should have quit like when Mueller.
I know that, but he didn't. They all think they're going to outrun the narrative, but we've got the narrative. They have no idea how far ahead we are in our audience and what they know.
That's right. We even know who constructed Hillary's template for winning the election, who paid for it, where it happened. It was in India. It was Dmitry Sladakovich, or what is it? No, I forget his last name. Anyway, he wrote the template. Well, but the template for SCL, which probably built upon that one, which was paid for by Eric Schmidt, was built by Aggregate IQ under the false shill company SCL Canada. Strategic Communications Limited, again, patty cake. That's Sir Jeffrey Patty, who is in the Privy Council. He rigged the Brexit vote? Yes. And that's why Soros is going to get another one, because Soros and the Queen, remember, they hate each other. He tried to take England down completely. He almost took down the English economy single-handedly. Remember, they call him the man who broke the Bank of England.
And that's what we're doing here at the American Intelligence Media. We're just trying to keep our research so it keeps the narrative going forward, and we are not going to let up. Okay, and the next tweet is, meeting in Singapore with North Korea will hopefully be the start of something big we will soon see.
Remember, this isn't just a meeting with North Korea. This is a meeting to take China down. That China isn't doing this themselves is the biggest slap to the face of the totalitarian leader of China. And there is only one person leading China right now. I like to call him Premier Xi. And why? He's out of control. Just listen to what we've told you about him. This is not about North Korea. North Korea's atomic program has been blown up. They're doing everything. everything they can do, including installing, I think, a McDonald's so they can have hamburgers when our team gets there. They're doing anything they can do, North Korea. They would love to join with South Korea. Why didn't they all this time? China. So, why is it meeting in Singapore? Another slap in the face for the Broadcom Qualcomm attempted 5G overthrow of America. That's the reason it's happening in Singapore. It could have happened anywhere, couldn't it? And this isn't about North Korea, folks. This is about how Trump is going to treat any totalitarian who threatens nuclear attacks. That's what this is about. That's why Iran is going nuts. That's why China is going nuts. That's why China's getting all active in the South China Sea. That's why we sent a retaliation to the South China Sea. So what's going on here is a war with China, but what's bigger is the war against free speech, which we mentioned a minute ago. And that's what we're doing here. We're trying to let you know that Trump is trying to take down the mainstream media, fake news. He has to do that first. That's the fourth estate. That's the only tool that we, the people, actually have, is the fourth estate, and then armed resurrection against our own government. Don't forget, that is our duty. That's what we all signed up for as citizens of the United States. And if you're not ready to defend the U.S. Constitution, the U.S. Bill of Rights, I suggest you leave America.
Okay, Thomas, let's, I know you're going to get off on this. Another thing, too, is that the media can confuse you greatly about what's going on in China and North Korea because they don't really want you to know. They want everyone to be destabilized so that they can get their agenda through.
And what's going on with Russia? It's not what's going on with Russia. It's what's going on with George Soros's European Union, Brexit, and his attempted overthrow of the American presidential election. And he is fighting against the Russians. All of his NGOs are all fighting against Russians. He says that Russia has interfered in all of the elections in the European Union. That's a lie. He says he has proof for the French intervention and the German intervention that the Russians. We have no proof that they interfered here. None. Zero. So they didn't interfere there either. Others did studies of the supposed interference in France, found none. Sorry. NASCAR, zoom, zoom.
Zoom, zoom, and champion Martin Truex Jr. were recently at the White House. It was a great day for a great sport.
All I can say to that is I've never driven one of those, but you have. What's it like driving one of those, Randall?
Yeah, I used to run an automotive school back in the day. It was great. We loved it. Okay.
But you race cars. I've never got in one of those race cars.
Yes, I know.
That must be something.
Yes, it was a lot of fun. Okay, the next tweet. Separating families at the border is the fault of bad legislation passed by the Democrats. Border security laws should be changed, but the Dems can't get their act together. Started the wall.
Now, I want to point something out. Notice he didn't put an exclamation mark there. You want to know why? Because he had already finished something like 400 miles of fixing the wall already with already existing money and the support of governors along the southern border. I think it's more like 700, but I don't want to exaggerate. And when you look at the fixes, you go, well, nobody's getting over that. So the one he's building in San Diego, which they are now begging for, that's what he's saying, started the wall. That's beautiful. San Diego is being flooded. They showed that wall can't stop anybody. And so they now begged, and he finally gave in. And he's going to build it there as an example that it actually will work. But this law, okay, until they address anchor babies, chain migration, and the fact that they don't know who anyone is when they cross our southern border. And so whatever that person says. So if they say, I'm seeking asylum from Honduras, my family was tortured there. They have to then go through a process where we have to provide a federal lawyer and a court to represent each one of them. Instead of having a wall where we'd be talking through the wall to them and they wouldn't be on our side.
Another thing that this tweet showed me, I like to really read between the lines, is about these Dems that can't get their act together. They don't have anybody on the bench for presidential race in 2020. They just pulled out Hiawatha Warren and to see how she would float. Their polls probably sank before they even took them. And now they've got the Schultz guy out, the former CEO of Starbucks, and he's, it's heavily suggesting that that's why he's leaving Starbucks. This is all they have, people. So we have to continue to follow our leader. We need to get a solid 8 years under our belt to take down this place.
Would like a successful businessman. Starbucks is not a successful business. It is the worst press besides Facebook.
He has no borders at Starbucks.
Precisely.
They just let anybody in now.
It might as well be a social service. If you're poor, you get a free coffee.
Yeah, I mean, that's pure socialism in action. But I just wanted to say it's really good to see that they can come up with nobody to go against our president. Okay, now.
One thing that you mentioned, the Dems.
Yeah.
Well, the Dems are trying to sneak in a pre-signed bill that nobody's really going to look at until it forces its way onto the agenda, because Paul Ryan, the one person who stands against almost everything that Trump has tried to do, he needs to leave now.
Well, he's a globalist. He's not on our team, America.
Kevin McCarthy and or Jim Jordan. I think Jim Jordan should replace him immediately, because there is no way that the House can move forward with that Republican in name only, Paul Ryan, who is a liar, who we have caught on tape lying multiple times, and then just caught out of his own mouth lying multiple times. And then he says one thing and does another. He needs to get out. He must be owned by some really very powerful people. Anyway, so they're trying to sneak in a bill where the DACA people get some kind of immunity, which is only, you have to change immigration law. You can't give immunity. You see, because the parameters of immunity will be fought immediately. The day after that goes into effect, everyone who's not DACA, who's an anchor baby, chain migration, lottery, or any of the other nonsense, DACA, children DACA parents, or any of the other nonsense of the 20 million illegal immigrants in this country, will simply be not affected unless we create a new immigration law that covers all of these things. So Trump doesn't just want a wall. He's going to say chain migration must end, lottery must end.
Yeah.
Anchor babies must end. If you say DACA, you got to define DACA.
And if you're listening to us from Europe, or Australia, or other parts of the world, you too need borders. You got to keep these globalists out. And let me tell you, the problem's not coming from outer space with aliens and extraterrestrials. That's where they want you to be looking while they are taking over your country right in front of you.
It's a slow, illegal immigrant crusade against America, a takeover, just like happened very quickly in Europe. It happened here over a couple decades. 20 million people came in because we didn't have borders. We didn't send people back with violating their visas. We let all kinds of presidential nonsense happen where he basically just defied the law in 10 different ways so that these people could stay, and no one wants to define. What is DACA? They say 700,000, then they say, no, we lied. It was 800,000. Lie. Those are the ones who stole Social Security numbers and are working. It's 2.5, and then their children, and then their parents. It's over 4.5 million DACA. So when you say DACA, you better define it. So they can't slip it in a bill with an undefined reference to DACA. That's what Trump won't sign. It isn't going to float.
Okay, well, a lot of this problem rests with the propaganda media because they haven't been telling people the truth. How would we know to ask these questions? Okay, next tweet. In high tax, high crime California, be sure to get out and vote for Republican John Cox for governor. He'll make a big difference.
Socialism. California should just change its name to socialism, because what they've done is they don't pay their bills. They wait till there's emergencies. They don't budget for emergencies, okay? Just look this up. They budget nothing for emergencies like the dam that broke or the fires or the yearly droughts or the whatever. They don't, no. They wait so that FEMA pays for it, so taxpayers pay for it. It's socialism. These are other states paying for California. High crime, you couldn't have any higher crime. They released the worst criminals out on the street without even charging them because they're illegal immigrants and this is a sanctuary state. And so if John Cox on, I think, June the 5th or whatever, whenever their primary is, if he could be one of the top two, then you're going to have a Republican running against a Democrat, probably, well, for sure. And that would be amazing because they have a crazy system there that whoever the top two primary winners are run against each other. So.
It will take us all day to try to explain California. Okay.
Right.
But we do have Kevin McCarthy. He's in the next tweet. Get out the vote in California today for Representative Kevin McCarthy and all of the great GOP candidates for Congress. Keep our country out of the hands of high tax, high crime Nancy Pelosi. And also I'll add Dianne Feinstein and Chuck Schumer. And
McCarthy's in the running to basically keep ruling over Nancy Pelosi so she can keep screaming apocalypse. So he needs McCarthy. And the next one is what I love.
I know you
Come on,
wait
jump
for
to
this.
the next one.
All right, vote for Congressman Devin Nunez, a true American patriot, the likes of which we rarely see in our modern day world. He truly loves our country and deserves everyone's support. Go for it. I tell you what, if you people in California do not reelect that guy, we're all coming in and
He
having
is
her
one
say so.
of the few.
Yes.
He speaks truth.
Yes.
You can see it on his face. You know how rare that is?
He probably reads Truth News headlines.
Just listen to him speak and then watch Trey Gowdy speak. We'll show
Well,
you what's
we
going
give
on.
everybody the benefit of the doubt. When Trey first came on the scene, we thought he was a bulldog and he was fighting for we the people. But then we began to notice that he's a talker and he's not a doer. In fact, he's an obstructionist, actually. But those people are leaving, and we want to put good people like Devin Nunez, Kevin McCarthy in place so that Trump can get his agenda taken care of.
If it wasn't for Devin Nunez, we might not have a president right now. I don't think that's much of an exaggeration. Had whoever came and told him that they were unmasking everybody in the skiff in the White House, had that not happened, I'm not sure that we would have started on all these investigations and that Trump would be exonerated. I think that the Mueller investigation would be 100 times more powerfully assaulting Trump than it is, and that people would be believing it, and there'd be nobody on the other side saying, no, this is nonsense. Plus, he is, I just saw him up in Tulare County. We love the work that you're doing, Mr. Nunez. We cannot thank you enough. If you were a lawyer, and we looked it up, and you said it the other night, which is really funny. You literally said it after we said it repeatedly. Well, we wonder if he's a lawyer. Well, we looked it up, and you're not a lawyer. But if you were, you should be the head of the, you should be the Attorney General. But it is possible that you don't have to be a lawyer to be the Attorney General. So I'm still going to suggest that Trump make an exception and make you the Attorney General, because you not only have one of the coolest counties in America, Tulare County, because of the sequoias and the fantastic Sierra Nevadas and don't get me started. But you are into agriculture. You are into supporting your people, and your long line of farmers in Tulare County makes you exactly the kind of honest person we need. And you are one of the few, and we salute you.
Next tweet, Senator Roger Wicker of Mississippi has done everything necessary to make America great again. Get out and vote for Roger. He has my total support.
Well, this is just going to keep going on. So, folks, just believe him. Whoever Trump is supporting,
get behind him.
Get behind him. That means Trump has heard them say things that his ear knew they were speaking the truth and they were supporting Make America Great Again. So all these people, we're not going to go into each one of them and why, because these are just beginning stages at this point, but except in California for the governor, big time. But what we're saying is, if he supports them, you can count on it.
And again, looking at these tweets collectively, Trump is asking us out here to put these people in place. They're people that he can work with. And so we need to do that. And if you have little quibbles with folks that he's recommending, okay, fine. In the next few years, we'll see if they flush out, if they're good or not. And then we can always reelect someone else. But let's give POTUS benefit of the doubt that he's calling out the people he wants on his team.
And Steve Bannon, do not vote for anyone he supports. As we can see, Bannon has been like 0 for I don't know how many. He hasn't hit anything right. And I think he got one right. And Trump got one wrong that I know of, and some others that, didn't have much of a chance. But the deal is Bannon is out there again, shooting his mouth off as if somebody wants to hear what he has to say after his absolute disgrace. I guess he must have got a little bit of Chinese money, because he's back up on the news page, which is just incredible.
All right, and the last tweet we have today is, at least for us, is a terrific new book out by the wonderful Harris Faulkner, quote, 9 rules of engagement, close quote. Harris shares lessons from a military family. Enjoy.
Well, I'm sure she has nice things to say. She comes along kind of seemingly reluctant sometimes to kind of, put all the pieces together and stand back and look at the puzzle and go, holy cow. She doesn't sometimes get it. So sometimes she needs to have it framed for her. And she has great people on her show, and she's smart. And so she's going to get it. And as this all starts to unravel before her eyes, just keep watching her face, because she's got really...
No. Fox News is so lame. They are so far behind the narrative. My goodness, do you know they're not even talking about the relationship that Jeffrey Patty has with Cambridge Analytica and SCL? Do you know that Fox News hasn't even named Senior Executive Service yet?
No.
Serco? And the thing is people out here, we're so much better, well-informed than Fox. Okay, of course, I'm not mentioning CNN, ABC, CBS, because they're like on some other planet with, we don't watch them at all. But Fox, we thought may have a chance, and they are so disappointing. I will say I do enjoy watching Lou Dobbs. He seems to be he really wants to get out there and push out the real truth. It seems like they're holding him back, and of course they are, because do you really think that Fox News wants to give up the goods?
Judge Janine.
Well, yes, but she only goes so far. Has she called out Senior Executive Service?
She's busy hammering on people.
Has she talked about the Crown agents yet? Have they linked Stephen Halper to the Queen of England? I mean, these are the news stories that people all over the world should be talking about. And don't tell me, well, they can't yet because the people aren't ready for it. Well, I'm ready for it, and I'm just a nobody out here in the Midwest of America. So everybody should know this stuff.
There's big media games going on. Murdoch's buying Sky, trying to control a bit more of Europe. And the Mercers are probably behind more of these agencies than we have any idea of. And when you look at the big bankers and the banker families that have supported this all along, and you look at who supports and owns the Associated Press, it should be quite clear to everyone. Turn off all that stuff. Because if you don't go out and find it in reputable places, and we can name any of the places that ever carried a word that supported the Trump-Russian dossier, you needn't ever listen to them again. There, that's all you need to know. Anyone who has never questioned 911 and done a single report.
There you go. Where's Fox News?
Why would you
Have
ever
they
watch
showed
them?
the relationship to the Brady Bonds? To 911, to George Bush, to Dick Cheney, to the Vulcans? Oh, and then back to the Queen of England? No. What do? They gave us that crap that Mueller gave us. I mean...
Mueller covered up 911. Why are we listening to him anymore? How could anybody say him and his 17 goons? And they are, and I just want to clarify something. They say Trump is wrong because only 14 of the 17 are truly Democrats and donated. And so there's a question of perhaps 2 that we don't know if they were really Democrats, so Trump is half wrong. No, your addition is improper. Plus, he didn't mention that they say, there was one Republican. Trump is completely wrong. There was a Republican on Mueller's team, and it was Mueller. He said Mueller and his team of Democrats. So anyone would know Mueller was a Republican so he could get the nomination by a Republican president. Hello? That's the way that it works. That's the reason they don't usually state that they are one party or the other. That is almost political death. And to have that many come out that have donated, that are proud, that Andrew Weissman was at the victory party for Hillary, certain she was going to win, and he is the number 1 stormtrooper working on SS Mueller stormtroopers group, that is just silly. I mean, they need to put things in perspective. While they're picking apart that Mueller is a Republican, they're not pointing out that the Democrats spent $12 million to create a dossier that had so many foreign actors trying to destroy our U.S. Constitution. They're never, ever going to mention that.